and they can share a little bit about what roles they played in their STEM designation process. So, Angela, can you introduce yourself?
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Angela Askew. I am the Senior STEM Manager with CCTE for Memphis Shelby County Schools. Now, that's a long title, but that's my title. We work with schools, pretty much increasing their STEM culture and enhancing it to expose students more to the STEM process and their families as well, to enhance and increase STEM careers in the future. So we do that by exposing the students to more STEM and careers, increasing post-secondary opportunities for high school students, and increasing our partnerships in the schools. So as a senior manager, my role is to support the schools in enhancing their STEM cultures through the designations, professional development, partnerships, and all of the above.
Thank you, Dr. Askew. Ashley Burns.
Hi, my name's Ashley Burns. I am the instructional technology facilitator at Arlington Middle School for Arlington Community Schools. Here, I am also the person that sort of spearheaded our website. We elected to, instead of collect our data and our evidence and put it in like a OneDrive, we decided that the UI of creating a website lent itself better to just interacting with it as a judge. So I was the one that created that website and collected all of the evidence to make the UI lovely to experience, and worked on that. Oh no,
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Ms. Tori Cottle.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. My name is Tori Cottle. I work for the Memphis School of Excellence Charter Network, which has 4 schools across Memphis. I am the STEM coordinator, so I lead the STEM leadership teams on the campuses.
Thank you, Ms. Cottle. And Ms. Betsy Pillow.
Hi, everyone. My name is Betsy Pillow, and I am the STEM instructional facilitator and PBL coordinator at University of Memphis Campus School, which is a K-5 elementary school on the University of Memphis campus. And so my role in the STEM designation process was to lead the STEM committee. I'm still in charge of the STEM committee, and so in a couple of years, we'll be looking at our redesignation process.
So does anyone have any questions for our panelists at this point, or do you want to move on with the next question that we have? Okay, and I'm going to throw this open to the panel, and maybe we can do it in order again, but if anyone wants to jump in. So what are 3 tips or strategies that you think made your application successful that you would like to share?
So the main thing is the action plan. The action plan drives the application. So make sure that action plan is realistic and very strategic and sustainable. So just in case something happens with anyone on the leadership team, is able to be sustained. So that involves making sure the community and community stakeholders are a part of it, as well as the faculty and staff and the parents. Make sure all of those are a part of it. And once you have that pretty much definite, everything else pretty much is going to fall in place. But having a strong action plan is the main thing I would suggest to have.
I think our major focus was the rubric. We looked at the STEAM rubric, and our team met many times to go over that. We focused on the highest element or the highest grading portion all the way down the rubric, and we divvied up the sections of the rubric two different small groups of teachers and focused on how we could show evidence in the highest categories that we possibly could. And specifically made sure that as we were ticking off the rubric that like we addressed like and really looked at the language of it. Is it saying some? Is it saying several? Is it saying one? Is it saying four? Like what specifically is the rubric saying? And when we had the state come out and meet with us, we going over that and asking for suggestions that they gave us. It was suggested, and we ended up really focusing on this, that the rubric isn't meant to be about what we're gonna do, or hopefully one day, and this is where we've messed up and we're gonna grow. This isn't like a team observation. You're showing where you are, what you're doing, and focusing on that. And that was some really good advice that we got. And then third, the data portion of it, we were very explicit in all of the different ways that we use and analyze data at our school, and provided substantial evidence for that. If anybody's wanting to see our website, our website is still active. That contains all of our evidence that we submitted for the application. I'm more than happy to drop in that website if you feel like it would be beneficial to you into the chat for you guys to look over and see how we did that, to see if it can maybe help you answer some questions. I see a yes, please. I'll pop into the chat now and just copy and paste our website there. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. We definitely emailed Audra Block, and had her come out and meet with us and answer our questions, and just made sure that we were, constantly just focusing on the rubric and showing how we were using that.
Ms. Cottle?
Yeah, so we have kind of an interesting situation because we actually applied with 3 campuses and we had one that received STEM designation. So what was interesting to me was to be able to see what those differences were between the campus that received it and the 2 that did not. And the biggest thing that I noticed was one, the leadership team on that campus was so strong. Like we had so many people that were actively like taking the lead on different projects, that were like purposefully contributing to the application, collecting the artifacts. So when it came time to apply, it was very easy. Everybody had already taken the lead on different projects, so they were able to actively contribute, and it wasn't just me like trying to figure out how to apply. So that was a big difference for us. And then also on our site visit, all 3 schools made it to the site visit. On the site visit, the biggest difference was just the way that the community showed up to the site visit. We had so many parents that came to talk about the way that the STEM programming had impacted their child, first generation Americans. And just generally, like, we really had people come out and just be very passionate about the way that our STEM programming had affected their children. And I think that was a very powerful motivator for that campus in particular during the site visit.
Ms. Pillow?
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of what Tori just shared. I think the most important thing was having a strong leadership team that was there to guide the application process. And a part of that was having a lot of collaboration among that leadership team. So when we went through the initial application process, we had a representative from each grade band and then our support areas on the application team. And then within that team, as we worked through the different sections, we assigned one section to each team member. And then the co-chair and myself, we worked with each of those teachers. So that really helped create a shared voice, which was the second thing that I think is really important, is having a shared voice on the application. Just like our students, it's hard when you're working on a group project, right? And so when we're looking at this series of essential essays that you're writing about each of these prompts, it was really important that from the reader's perspective, it appeared as if it was one shared voice for the whole school. And so we think by having delegation for each of those parts, that really helped create that shared voice among our application. And then my third thing that I think is really important was to document everything. We ended up needing to go back and change some of the documentation that we wanted to include to support our reasoning for STEM designation. And so we just wanted to make sure that we were including and capturing a true authentic picture of what our STEM programming looked like. And a lot of that came from that initial review that we did and the feedback that we were looking at as a team. And that's still something that we use even after STEM designation, is going back and looking at that feedback that we received from TSIN and making sure that that is what's driving our current STEM practices when we're building our STEM programming.
All right, great. So Allison and I are going to switch out here for a minute. So the next question that I'm going to ask, and I'm going to put all the people that are participating on notice that you'll get the opportunity to ask your questions right after this. So be thinking about that. So, you know, we've talked about some things that you think were really important and were very instrumental in your successful application. So I wanted to know if you could also share what some of the challenges were that you faced as you were trying to put this together. And in particular, were there things that sort of stumped you? And how did you work around that? Dr. Askew, should we start back with you again?
Sure. I neglected to say, when I went through STEM designation. I was principal at William H. Brewster Elementary School. So I was the principal when the school was designated. So I went through the process as well. One thing was pretty much getting the entire faculty to buy in. We did have the teachers from each grade level, as I think Ms. Pillow stated, from every aspect of the school, but pretty much getting the entire school to actually buy into it was an obstacle in the beginning. But once we started working on the PBLs and sharing information and offering professional development, the teachers started to feel more comfortable with what they were doing in the STEM culture. And they started to realize they were already doing it. The culture was there. They just looked at it as something separate without the with science, math. They looked at it as separate entities, but not integrated as STEM is. So once they understood that, that helped a lot in helping the teachers to talk to the students about it, and the students to actually understand what they were actually learning throughout the processes of the PBLs and the engineering design processes. So pretty much the mindset of the teachers, getting the buy-in and keeping it there, was my main obstacle as a principal there.
I would echo that. I think getting teachers to understand that in 2022, with the emphasis on soft skills on our students, and really being able to cultivate those as they go out into, you know, in high school and the workforce and college and beyond that, that it's these soft skills that are across the curricula, that are not content specific, that are at the heart of what being a STEAM or a STEM school is. And getting teachers to buy in and understand that, yes, in fact, you are a STEM teacher. You don't have to know math. You don't have to know science. You don't have to understand those to understand you're teaching kids how to problem solve. And I think the shift to help the growth mindset perspective of teachers, that instead of looking at it like STEM is science, is tech, is the words in the acronym, it to shift that focus onto look at the design process, look at problem solving, look at collaboration, look at communicating. And are you not those things? And if you kind of maybe work it backwards, instead of let's focusing on the title of STEM and STEAM, focus on what makes up the design process. And we found a little bit more success of buy-in as we started to develop our own Tiger design process and get input from across the grade bands and across the content areas from teachers, because we wanted to create something that would apply to English, that would apply to art, that would apply to STEM classes and even PE, and create vernacular that would be used in those classrooms. I think that's when teachers started to understand that STEM in 2022 is way more than science, technology, engineering and math. It's way more than that. And it really is the heart of all the soft skills that we're wanting to impart and ingrain in our children. And we're still getting buy-in. We're still working on that. We're still working on building this ecosystem of like PBLs being the norm and working across content, not just doing a great job in your PLCs, but working across the content areas. I think that was probably one of our biggest challenges too, just as Dr. SQ mentioned.
Tori, you want to chime in?
Sure, yeah. As far as challenges in actually developing the application, obviously it is long. It's very long. So making sure that you have people that can contribute to the application is key. But then secondly, a challenge we had was figuring out how we wanted to tell our story and like what story it was that we wanted to tell. So like, who are we and what is the story that we really want to communicate? What makes us a STEM school and what makes us different from other STEM schools? Like our students are not the same as students in other schools. And so what sets us apart, what makes us different? So kind of like narrowing in and drilling down on those things, like what makes us who we are as a STEM school and how do we want to like tell that story and communicate that story was a conversation we had quite a few times in our STEM leadership teams, which was a challenge, but also was very helpful. So I think those are the things that we found challenging that we were able to work through.
Then I'll share one challenge that we faced as we went through the designation application was finalizing each piece to our document before we moved on to another. And one thing that we found that was very helpful is we brought in community partners to help us edit our document. We had one former teacher come back who was a grammar whiz. She came in, edited our document for us, and she had a very interesting perspective because she knew the ins and outs of the school. So she knew the message that we were trying to send. We also had a community partner from the University of Memphis campus go back and read the application to look for certain things. And then he had children that went to campus school. So he also had a very different perspective as he helped us finalize that editing piece. And then we had a teacher from our school that was not on the actual writing committee help review the application. And so having all of those different voices look at our application from other lenses, that really helped us kind of overcome that challenge of making sure that our application was clear to someone who did not know about our school or the things that we offered.
Thanks so much. Those were all such great insights, and I know will be really helpful with people as they're starting to think about or are working on doing this. So let's go ahead and pause here for just a second and see what questions those of you who are at other schools who are either working towards this this year or are thinking about it for next year. What kinds of questions do you guys have?
I have a question. I've gone through the STEM designation process before, but I went through advanced ed and not TSIN. So I know, and I jumped in like towards the end of the designation. I was there on like the last year of it. And so my understanding was that they would like submit, get feedback, then edit it to make sure that they're showing everything that advanced ed wanted to see. And so it was a working process. And is it the same with TSIN? Because I feel like for us right now, I mean, we're starting the process, but I feel like we've done it kind of fast. So to me, like finding the time to really sit down as a team and get it all cohesively done has been a challenge.
Yeah, I can say having applied with multiple schools multiple times, you do apply if your application is well received, you'll be invited to participate in a site visit. But there's no feedback between that and the site visit. After the site visit, they say if you are designated or not, and then provide feedback afterwards. And then you would apply the following year if you were not designated the first time. So there's really no working feedback. It's kind of just yes or no, unfortunately.
I will say though that what we elected to do was reach out to the state and our person that was our representative from TSIN, and also to Audra Block. And we requested a meeting here. We requested virtual meetings where we shared what we had and asked questions like, are we on the right track? Are we writing this well? Is this the type of evidence that you're meaning? Does this meet the rubric here, or would you suggest us to go in a different place? And we met with our STEM leadership team during these meetings. Some of them were Zoom, and we were able to have Ms. Block come out and meet with us and answer questions personally as well. So those were invaluable feedback that we got from them as we were making sure that we understood we were reading the rubric correctly.
Also, you complete a self-assessment before the process starts, and you have a phone call that they actually go through the rubric with you and tell you to focus on that model status when you complete your application. So once you complete your self-assessment, that allows you to reflect on your actual culture and what you have already implemented. And the call will kind of focus on and give you some feedback on what you've already put in the self-assessment and how to enhance for the actual application. So that's done at the beginning of the process before you actually complete the application.
I feel like it's truly meant to be an authentic capture of the STEM programming your school is offering. So it really may be that your school is not ready to be STEM designated, and then you can take that feedback and work on that the next school year. But the feedback from the team does come at the end of that application process to provide your team with that feedback to move forward in your STEM planning.
That was a great question, Helen. So thank you for asking that. What other questions do you guys have?
Vernisha asked something in the chat. It says, may you please walk us through your site visit? What are they looking for during the visit? During our site visit, we had the representatives go through a number of our classrooms, and they specifically were looking at students and asking students questions and getting their input on how the class was going and what they were doing, and getting them to explain to them what was happening. And then at the end, we had a panel discussion, a roundtable discussion with quite a number of students, and then some community members and parents who were able to answer questions from the panel and share. Our students gave a presentation about an outdoor classroom that they were wanting to create and presented ideas on, and how they were taking it through to completion, and they presented their ideas. And then so it's kind of a little presentation at the end. And then we had several members of our STEM leadership team on that roundtable as well. And then the committee that was there asked us questions after they experienced their tour.
Yeah, I'll echo the student part. They asked students a ton of questions about, like, do you do this kind of thing all the time? Like, they want to make sure that you're not just doing a project because they're there. So they will ask them that, and students can say whatever they want. So, they want to see genuinely, are you doing this all the time? And if you're not, then it's just for show and you're not ready. So they will ask your kids plenty of things.
Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
Our tour was a little different because it was in the middle of the pandemic. So ours was actually a virtual tour, but we had a video that was filmed by students, and it was completely student created, student led. So that was that piece of the tour. And we made sure to highlight all of the different parts that we'd shown in our application. And then we did have a roundtable discussion with our STEM committee of teachers, and then one that included the community partners that had been a part of the things that we echoed in our application. Students, we had their parents with them, and then some former teachers as well. So there was a lot in the tour and the panel discussions that we shared that reflected what was in the application. So I encourage you to look at what you're showing in your application and make sure that's highlighted in that piece as well.
So I will echo on Ms. Pillow. We actually went through during the pandemic as well. So our students did create a video. They talked about the STEM culture, the PBLs, and the engineering design process. During our interview, it started out with the parents and the students and the partners that actually worked with us. They told how they worked with the school and how they helped with the PBLs and worked with the students as well. So everything was virtual, but the video showed the entire school culture. We pretty much took them around the school, looked at each of the classrooms, and they talked about their projects. So it was very in-depth video that the panelists actually had a chance to see.
I don't see any other questions in the chat, so feel free to add more there, or does somebody want to just unmute and ask something?
Did all our schools seek the STEM designation, or do we have anyone who's been through the STEAM process?
We're a STEAM school. That's a good question. We were very nervous about that when we initially applied or sought out application. We elected as a school to try for STEM, but when we met with Audra Block, who's the director of STEAM and CS for the state of Tennessee, she let us know that we could apply for STEAM, and if the panel felt like we better fit STEM and didn't qualify for STEAM, then that would be okay, that we could still receive STEM designation. And we were very happy that we went ahead and applied for STEAM, because we really are an arts school. We're a middle school, Arlington Middle School and Arlington Community Schools, and we do 5-day-a-week band, 5-day-a-week chorus, and we do a lot of PBLs and projects across the curricula, and did getting a STEAM designation.
Anybody else want to add anything there? Okay. Other questions?
I have one, and I'm kind of new, so I'm sorry if this is like a stupid question, but when we provide evidence and things, how far do we go back? Like if this is our school's first time doing it, are we just like evidence from this first semester of school, or like do we include last school years, the school year before that? Kind of how far should we go back, I guess?
I did ask that question when we were going through the process. I was told a year before, do not go back prior to 1 year before. So you can go back to the last school year, but not the year before that.
Ours was a little different because we applied this last year, and we're still kind of on the heel of the pandemic. I'd encourage you to ask and seek that out, because when we asked, they gave us a little bit more of a cushion, because we're kind of at the end, but we've been in the middle. Things were different. Can we show how we could collaborate and how we did collaborate, and then how we did during the pandemic and how we're trying to again? And they allowed us to do that. So ours, for some of the categories, such as when you talk about collaboration, we did go back and show, this is what we did before, this is what we did during, and we're trying to get there again now, and here's how, this is where we are now. So we did kind of waffle a little there, but it's a complicated answer right now. So ask them. I don't really know, because we're kind of a little more out of it than we were last year. So I don't know. I guess it would also depend on how your school's functioning. Are you fully all the way back? Are y'all different? I mean, we're all different.
The applications who are successful are explained at the end of the year in May at the TSIN conference. So when we started the application, we began the conversations about it the year before we applied. So probably about that January or February, we'd already established our STEM committee that beginning August, we had our group set to begin the application. So that way we had our pre-established group, and then began the application that school year of 2020. And then we had our site visit right before TCAP time, so right before April, and then it was announced in May. So it was a full year process of truly working in the application.
Our committee knew who they were before we went out for the summer the year before. We did not meet over the summer. We did know going into the next school year, congratulations, you're voluntold that you're going to be on the STEM committee. It's going to be amazing. And we had 2 people per rubric category. And then I'm an outlier. I was in all of the categories because I was putting all of the evidence together. And then our admin team, and those people worked tirelessly throughout the first entire semester, gathering and collecting and writing and working in their like going back to their grade levels and gathering data and getting it from the teachers. And we had designated days throughout the first semester where each one of the different rubric categories would have a full day of work in our conference room, and where the rest of the school during their planning time, the PLCs would come into the conference room and answer questions from that committee, like whatever their rubric was, and they would be tasked with giving them evidence then, or, oh gosh, I'm in a room where you have to move every 30 minutes or the motion detector turns the lights off. So that full day they got to collect data from teachers for whatever their rubric category was. And that was the entire first semester, and that I feel that was invaluable for collecting the evidence and gathering it and working out how we'd word things, how we put it together, because it's very time required.
I will say one thing that actually saved us on the time, we actually download the entire application once we got into Slide Room. So download those questions in advance and then divvy those up between the committees that Ms. Burns just talked about, and then having them to come in, take the days. We took days as well. So we pretty much had it on a Word document where everyone was typing and giving information. But one person was given the task of pretty much putting the information in, because that's the one that had the final Word document that would actually be uploaded. So, and we also had a OneDrive where everyone just uploaded their documents and their artifacts. We looked at that as well. So once we talked about a certain area, the plan was to be finished with that attribute once we met and went through the actual questions. So downloading those questions in advance to have those narratives completed, and then talking about the artifacts will save and help with some of the time during the application process.
Yeah, we also worked in a Google Doc, so we just put all the questions in a Google Doc and worked together on that. It made it much easier.
We have a question in the chat about how many times each of you applied before you received designation.
We actually received designation on the first try.
Same.
We did as well.
Not us. So we applied, a few campuses have applied twice. This campus, the one that most recently got it, that was their second year applying. And we have a few that are applying now for the third time, because the feedback is so helpful. Even if you're not ready, like the feedback is truly helpful, like how we've integrated the engineering design process in our campuses now. And just, even if you think you're ready and, you don't get it the first time, it genuinely helps to receive the feedback for sure.
Other questions? Well, I have one. So can you guys share what's been the impact of getting the designation? So what kind of value do you see from this for your program?
Well, for Brewster, now I'm not at Brewster anymore, but I have seen, and I'm keeping tabs on my school, on my former school. So the actual enrollment and students coming in interested in STEM and STEAM, because we have an arts program. Well, we had an arts program. Brewster has an arts program. A musical and the arts, with the actual art class. So basically a lot of students coming in that are interested in the arts are coming in and the STEM, because we have the coding class, pretty much with the STEM ambassadors with the University of Memphis. So a lot of different activities for the students to be engaged in. So the STEM minded students are increasing at Brewster. So I can say, and the community partnerships are increasing as well once the designation was received. So I know I was going back and forth because I still consider it my school. So will always be my school.
Absolutely. I think we're just doing a whole lot more. We're growing. We did our first STEM family night STEAM family night last year, and that's growing and becoming monstrous this year. Our outdoor classroom, we've gotten grants for, we're building on that, and we're currently working on like a brick memorial path where kids can buy into that. There's we're working on a STEM lab at our school to mirror what we have going on at our high school. We're doing more PBLs, like where we did only 2 PBLs across the school last year. We're doing them quarterly now. So we're doubling what each content area is doing and how they're meeting. We are changing how we talk about solving problems. Like we're really trying to buy into the whole design process across the curricula. So we've worked in Canva, and I've really worked with my admin team on developing different workflows through, like how would an English class work through the design process in creating an essay or to create an argument? How would an art class do this to create a logo? How would a math class learn a new concept and do trial and error in figuring it out? And each content area on their own, without doing a PBL, without working across the curricula, we'll use parts of the design process and the problem solving words and how we think through things and in their areas. And our students, I think, we're trying to teach them that sometimes there's not going to be an answer. Sometimes there's not a solution. Sometimes there's well, this is what we found out. How would we make it better next? And so that's a learning thing we're teaching. We're growing with our kids. It's exciting to see how we're trying to really weave that into the curricula and how we want our language to change and how we think. And we're really working on growth mindset with our students and teaching that. And we're really restructuring how we work with community partners. Like we don't want them to just come in, right, and be the spelling bee announcer. We want them to come in and we want them to interact with our kids in their projects. And when they're coming up with an orthotic for an ankle, we want the community partners to come in and give them feedback before the project's over, not just be a judge at the end, but come in the beginning. And I think we're really flipping how we work with community partners on their head. We're I think that's one thing 2020 did well for us, is that it taught us that this is normal. Zooming with you guys is possible and normal, and we can do really cool things like meet with NASA scientists and sun scientists, solar scientists from across the country, and they can teach us. And I think that's been a fun thing to do. So I think how we think is what's changing.
I will chime into that for the redesignation process, because I was a part of the redesignation task force. Everything she just said is going to be looked at for redesignation. The community partners, they should not be one-offs. Like she said, the spelling bee things, they should come in and be a part of your actual school culture, coming in, working with your students, being a part of the PBLs, talking about the careers, which enhances the student exposure to the careers. So that should be, the community partners should be a part of your culture and not just coming in and leaving. So that's going to be a big part of the redesignation when you guys go through it, once you get your designations.
Yeah, for us, like the value in it, like we're a Title I school and like we have been working towards it for so long, but we don't have like the fancy equipment and like all of the technology that some other schools are able to have. So like the value to us was realizing that like STEM is like in your people and like what they do and like who we are, not necessarily like what you have. Because you can always like rely on other people to come in and work with your kids, but like just realizing the value in like our STEM culture is what it is because of the people that we have, not because we have like all these fancy things. And like that value had really helped our teachers sort of take more and more ownership. So like they're doing more initiatives, they're starting more projects, just knowing that we are a STEM school and we don't need to have some of the things that the other schools have to be a STEM school. We can do it with our people. And so that was huge for us.
After going through the STEM designation process, I feel like it has provided our school with a lot of additional opportunities, spotlights in the community, given us funding and avenues for funding that we didn't have, especially for special projects. It's allowed us to anchor in community partners and really taught us how to work with community partners and build a mutual relationship that benefits our students and the partners and our greater community. And especially as it comes to planning PBL projects and planning things in the classroom, that's one huge piece of value that we've taken away, is involving our community partners in the actual lessons and the planning part, which we would have not known to do if we hadn't gone through the process and seen other schools and visited other schools and taken away from the greater STEM community in Memphis and across the state of Tennessee, especially through TSIN and attending conferences and meetings with other teachers too.
So in closing, what final words of wisdom can you share to help others with their STEM designation journey?
Just like reach out to schools, reach out to people. I've just put in the chat, like we visited Betsy's school, we visited a ton of STEM designated schools just to see like, what does this look like? And that was probably one of the most helpful things we did.
And
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Piggybacking off of that, to be confident and authentic in the programming that you have, because what works with one school may not work with your school, and that is okay. So it's being confident in the programming you have, but also being willing to be flexible and seeing what you can mold into your school environment.
So that's exactly what I was going to say. There's no cookie cutter way to do things. Every school is different and you adapt it to your culture. So just keep that in mind and be able to talk about it and showcase it as much as possible.
And the application isn't an apology. It's not a team rubric where you're putting your reinforcement and your refinement. This is a statement. So like, make sure you're focusing on what it is you are doing. What are you doing now? How are you building? How are you growing? What are you doing? Not, well, we wanna, like, what are you doing? And focus on your strengths and what it is that you're doing, and focus on the rubric. Go back to the rubric, and make sure that you edit and review what you're doing, have other people read it. And do not be afraid to reach out to TSIN or the state and ask them to ask them if you're on the right track, because from our experience, they are nothing but helpful and happy to answer your questions and get on those Zoom calls or come down and answer them. They were amazing through the whole process. So definitely don't suffer in silence. It is a giant elephant. You can eat it one bite at a time, but use your team. You cannot do it if you're a party of one. You have to have a team.
And it sounds like if you're on the fence, it might well be worthwhile applying this year so that you can take that feedback. The rubric is the same every year, was revised slightly in 2021, but it's pretty static. So you're going to be able to turn around and use what you did this year and feed it straight back into next year's application if you don't get it this time around.
And we posted the link to the resources for STEM designation that are on the TSIN site in the chat.
Any closing questions from the audience? Well, I, for one, would like to offer my sincere thanks to our panelists for sharing their time with us.
Absolutely. This was fantastic. I think very, very informative for everyone. We really appreciate you doing this and being willing to share. I did also want to mention that, and I think Joanne put some information over here in the chat, but Joanne, do you want to unmute real quick and just share about the Voyage Solar System Scale Model?
I would love to. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. I'm Joanne Rhodes from the Department of Physics and Materials Science at the university. And I have, let's see, this is our, we have, I put a link to this site. We have a 10 billion to 1 scale model of the solar system coming to be permanently installed on our campus next month. I was trying for this month, but I don't think it's going to be installed before we close on the 23rd. I really think that it will be installed before the January semester. But anyway, this is the site that tells you about the Voyage Solar System model. And it is 2,000 feet long. We're going to have the sun right here on campus at the north. It's the north end of campus. And then we have the inner planets. Then we have to go to another photo to see where the outer planets will be. And it goes almost to the railroad track before we get to Pluto. And what it will look like, let's see, I think I have, yeah, this is sort of what it will look like. There's a sun. The sun is about the size of a large grapefruit. And then each stanchion will have a planet that is to scale with that sun, and the spacing will also be to scale. So the Earth is 15 meters away from that grapefruit size sun, and it is the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen. And then I have one more thing. Yeah. This is, can you see this Voyage to the Sun?
Yes.
Okay. It has a campus map. So it's custom because it has this map. And so it shows where everything is relative to the nearby buildings. So you can look and see what you recognize. There's one of these storyboards. It's about 3 feet across for every planet. And there will be pictures and information about every planet. And we're just really excited. I am really excited to have it. I've been working on getting it for 2 years, and it is in a crate in Newark.
We're definitely excited about this
I'm
coming to
working on
campus.
trying to get it here. Yeah, it is going to be, the crate is 10 feet long, and it's going to be housed in our, the lower part of our Zach Curlin parking garage while we slowly unload it, inspect it, and install it. The big wooden crate. Anyway, I would love, we will have an opening. I don't have a date yet, but we will have an opening, and sometime in January or February. And I hope that you all will bring your classes to walk along the solar system.
That's very awesome. And I hope that it's up in time for Engineering Day, because that was the other thing I was going to announce, is that we are definitely doing an Engineering Day. It's the Saturday of Engineers Week. So it'll be or right when it kicks off. So it'll be Saturday, February 18th. They are working on the website right now. So as soon as it is up and available, I will shoot out an email to let everybody know that it has gone live. So we're excited to finally be bringing this back in person. So we hope that you'll join us for that. As far as other competitions for the spring, we will still be having construction. We'll also have the STEM essay competition. We're going to continue the inventors competition as well. We'll have a transportation challenge again. So quite a few things of the TikTok STEM challenge, lots of things coming up for the spring. And so we are going to add a competition page to our website. So you will see this going live in early January. And again, I'll shoot out an email as soon as that's available, so that you'll be able to access everything in one place. But keep an eye out for that. And then the other thing I was going to mention is that there has been a lot of interest in some support for PBL. So we will be lining up PBL training for one of our after-school STEM sessions for the spring semester. So as soon as we have the date for that established, I will let you guys know. But we've got that on tap. And then we also are going to have a session with the chamber to talk about workforce in the region, and particularly to help everybody understand kind of all of the exciting things that are happening in West Tennessee, and how we can support employers as they are coming in with what we're doing in our classrooms. So I think that's going to be a pretty interesting session as well. So we've got a lot of cool stuff that will be coming up starting in January. So thank you all for being here today. We're very glad that you were able to join us. We will get this, I hope we will get this loaded to our YouTube channel. We're having a little bit of an issue with the password. None of us seems to know what it is or who gets the email to reset it. So we're still trying to figure that out. But fingers crossed, we're going to have this loaded tomorrow. I feel pretty confident. So we will post this, and then I will be in touch as we have more developments and things to share. So thank you all, and we hope you all have a great rest of your week and weekend and wonderful holiday season. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good